Today we're going to talk about the Sweat Lodge. The Sweat Lodge is one of Native America's most popular and most powerful ceremonies. But I want to talk about the powerful aspect of the Sweat Lodge. What makes it such a powerful ceremony? The human being, in the course of its existence, has, of course, a very strong preoccupation with its physical aspect. When we get thirsty, we drink water. When we get hungry, we eat. When we get cold, we look for warmth. When we get hot, we look for shade and cooling. And this is pretty much the major occupation or preoccupation of the human beings. Human beings, though, have another aspect to them. It's mentioned, but it's really not taken care of in a very deep way. The human being is not only a physical creature, but it is also a spiritual creature. Within the human being is what we call the spirit. And a human being is more than just the physical self. In fact, actually, you probably have heard the phrase, I am not my body, or I am more than my body. Well, what is this I that says I am not my body? Because if I remove my arms, I'm still a human being, and I'm still who I am. If I remove my legs, no arms, no leg, I am still me. And that is the spiritual aspect of the human being. Now, even though we have this aspect, we don't preoccupy ourselves with it. When we get hungry, we eat. When we get thirsty, we drink. But do we spend any kind of time attending to our spiritual aspect? No, we do not. Or at least not that much. It's only in ceremonies that we actually even think about the spiritual aspect of ourselves. Now, the Sweat Lodge ceremony is very unique in that it attends to both aspects of the human being simultaneously. Inside the Sweat Lodge, you have a very warm, moist space that promotes sweating. Now, sweating is beneficial on the physical level in that many of the water-soluble toxins that we pick up in the course of our normal existence get exuded. And we actually become healthier for it. In fact, this is a universal. All over the world, people do sweats. In fact, in Europe, you'll find the sauna is a very popular pastime, is a very popular ceremony. And they do it because it is physically beneficial. The humans know that sweating is a good thing physically. But in a sweat lodge, we have a slightly different thing happening. Because we are also praying in the sweat lodge, we are also attending to our spiritual selves, but in a very profound way. A sweat lodge is very, very warm. And during that very warm period, remember I talked about when humans get hot, they seek cooling and they seek shade. They actually are trying to accommodate their physical selves. In a sweat lodge, you're physically very uncomfortable. But here's an opportunity to actually say to the body, today I am not going to attend to you. Today I am going to attend to my spiritual self. I am not going to be my body today. Today I am going to sit here in this physically uncomfortable space, let the body cleanse itself physically, but I am going to attend to my deeper spiritual aspect. In fact, if the person is astute enough, they can, in the Sweat Lodge opportunity, realize that here is a chance to get into a very deep spiritual situation. Because you, as I said, you want to get out of this very physical, uncomfortable space. But really, the best way to get out of this physically uncomfortable space is to get into your spiritual self. So the way out is in. Now, we all know that under certain stressful conditions, a human being can remove themselves from that stressful physical condition and move to another space. Here is an opportunity, a very uncomfortable, stressful situation that's already preset to be a perfect doorway into leaving the physical discomfort by going deep within the spiritual self, using the songs and the prayers and the dark and the silence of the sweat lodge to go to a deeper spiritual space. So in this way, the sweat lodge accomplishes both the nurturing of the spirit and also the rejuvenation of the physical. And for those that can take this opportunity to do that second part, that is to go to the spiritual space within this opportunity known as the sweat lodge, it is a very, very powerful and beneficial opportunity. This is the part of the sweat lodge that I wanted to talk about because it is the most, in my mind, important aspect, because you can certainly go to any health spa and get an opportunity to perspire and do those things that I mentioned that are possible under other conditions. But in a sweat lodge, you have the perfect opportunity to go beyond that into a higher place.
Hello everyone, I'm here today to talk about the Temascal. The Temascal is a Mesoamerican style sweat lodge. The word Temascal comes from the Nahuatl language, and it actually means house of steam vapor. Traditionally and in ancient cultures, Temascals were in every village, cities. Many of the Aztec and Mayan temples also had Temascals built within them. Ceremonies were held by men and women. The women were known as Temascaleras. The men were known as Temascaleros. And they would go village to village. Sometimes they would have one that would stay in the village that would provide these ceremonies for the people. The Temascal is a purification ceremony that can be done socially for people to come together in community, to laugh, to share, to just have fun, and to detoxify the body. The Temascal is also used for deep healing ceremonies to heal the body, mind, and spirit. There's also birthing ceremonies in the Temascal, and there are also tantric type sexual ceremonies that are held in there. So for many of these cultures, the Temascal was a big part of their daily lifestyle. Because of that, they were very healthy and they were very clean. When the Spaniards came, they made an evil thing of the Temascals. They tore them down. And a lot of the disease came into the villages because of that. The people that used the Temascal in their communities would use them regularly, once a week, sometimes twice, where the Spaniards would maybe bathe, if they were one of the higher-ups, once a month. So you could see that it affected their hygiene, but it was also very much a part of their spiritual ceremonies. They sing spiritual songs, healing songs. The way that I know the Temascal is that when you enter into the Temascal, you are entering into the womb of creation. You are going back to that place of knowledge of your soul, separate before you entered your human body. You are also coming to that place where you were being created, and it wasn't just all your efforts and strength that were doing the work. When we come into the Temascal, we go back into the womb of creation. We have 4 rounds, and those 4 rounds represents the wind of creation. The 4 winds of creation, or the 4 directions. So if you can imagine when Creator, who I see as Mother and Father, sent forth the breath of creation, filled with love, filled with passion, filled with intent. Imagine that breath forming into 4 distinct breaths that still all represent the same one breath. Those are the breaths, the wind of the divine that we come in contact with in the Temascal. So very, very powerful, miraculous, and magical things can happen in there when we set our intentions. When we go into the Temascal, we are not working alone. There are very powerful guardians who are with us to help us to see our soul, to come into deeper contact with our spirit man. I feel that the people who were originally given this tradition knew that the Temascal would be a place for human beings to reconnect with their true selves. A mirror that when they look into that mirror, they can see who they really are again, apart from their experiences in life, apart from the things that have defined them that are not their true identity. And so when we come into the Temascal, we have the opportunity to really be born again and come into contact with our true authentic self as the breath of life is bringing us forth in that divine womb. And so we come out new. Physically, our bodies are detoxifying. The Temascal fills with steam, and our bodies become covered in steam. And at that point, our skin begins to act like a third kidney that is pushing the toxins out of our body at a faster rate than normal. The energies that are inside the Temascal are also affecting us. The breath of creation is breathing on us. So it's not just the heat that we're experiencing divine help, the divine breath, helping us to recreate our lives into a more balanced and more harmonious state. If you look at the Temascal, we have the fire here. This is what heats the rocks and stones that are inside. The stones are known as the female organs. The fire is known as the male energy. There's a little hole on the top that is known as the tonality. That's our connection, or our umbilical cord connected to the cosmos. And then the front, the entrance, is the birth canal. And when we go in, it's round and we're going back into the womb of creation. So I like to say that the Temascal is a place that we come to know our spiritual creator and merge our physical existence from our ancestry. So on one hand, we come from our mom, our dad, and our ancestors. And so we have that physical child, and sometimes that could be a wounded child. But then on the other hand, we come from Creator, Mother, and Father, and so that's the divine child. And when we go into the Temascal, it gives us an opportunity to merge the wounded, broken child with the divine child that comes from the breath of life. And that creates the magical child who has a new experience, a new way to live in life with more joy, more harmony, and more playfulness. Another characteristic of the Temascal is it's feminine in nature. So it's not as warrior-like as some other traditional sweat lodges. It's much more nurturing. And many, many women run these lodges. I learned it from women. Although I've worked with men and they've taught me, I learned it from medicine women who were holding Temascals regularly. I feel blessed to be here to work with Don Patricio in this beautiful facility that he's had for many, many years. And I'm thankful for him hosting and allowing me to be a part of all of this.